Imagine boarding a plane on what should be a routine flight. Nothing unusual, just another journey across the country. Within minutes, however, the unthinkable happens. An ordinary takeoff turns into one of the most horrifying moments in aviation history. Families waiting at the gate, air traffic controllers in the tower, even photographers with cameras ready. All would bear witness to a tragedy that would change the way airlines operate forever. This is not just the story of a crash. It's the story of overlooked warnings, hidden mistakes, and the chain of events that led to the worst single aircraft disaster ever to occur in the United States. Stay with us until the end, because the truth behind what really happened is more shocking than you might imagine. On May 25, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 began its takeoff roll from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. The flight was expected to last just over 5 hours, but instead it would remain in the air for less than a minute before a catastrophe unfolded. What followed would become the deadliest single aircraft disaster in the history of the United States. Founded in 1930, American Airlines became recognized as the flag carrier of the nation. Over time, it grew to be the world's largest airline by passenger numbers. In the early 1970s, the company looked for ways to expand seating capacity on transcontinental and long-haul services, evaluating new designs offered by both Boeing and McDonnell Douglas. After examining the Boeing 747 alongside the McDonnell Douglas DC-10, American chose the DC-10 to be its primary long-range aircraft. These jets would serve the airline for decades, though not without issues. In 1972, soon after their introduction, Flight 96 suffered a cargo door failure, though the crew managed to bring the plane back safely with no fatalities. 2 years later, the same design flaw caused the tragedy of Turkish Airlines Flight 981, claiming hundreds of lives. Unfortunately, this would not be the final incident involving the DC-10. On May 25, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 was scheduled to depart Chicago for Los Angeles, a route flown regularly by the carrier. The journey was planned to last about 5 hours. Aboard the plane were 271 individuals, 258 passengers, and 13 crew members. The cockpit crew included Captain Walter Lux, aged 53, First Officer James Dillard, aged 49, and 56-year-old flight engineer Alfred Udovich. All three were seasoned aviators who had flown the route many times before. At 3:04 p.m., clearance for departure was issued, and First Officer Dillard advanced the throttles to take off power. The wide-body jet gathered speed along runway 32R, passing 100 knots and then reaching V1, the point after which aborting takeoff would no longer be safe. "Rotate," called Captain Lux, prompting Dillard to pull back on the control column. At that very moment, the aircraft shook violently, accompanied by a loud metallic snap. Captain Lux uttered a single word, "Damn!" just as several instruments went dead. Inside the tower, an air traffic controller looked up and saw something horrifying. The plane's left engine had detached from the wing and tumbled onto the runway. He shouted his observation to colleagues and immediately summoned emergency responders. The controller tried to contact the stricken jet, but it was already in distress. Observers, both on the ground and in the tower, saw the aircraft bank sharply left before rolling fully onto its side. 2 photographers nearby happened to capture the unfolding disaster on film. The wide body then descended uncontrollably, striking a hangar that housed an auto repair shop. The resulting fireball and explosion were enormous, with witnesses describing it as resembling a shower of flames raining down. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, at first believing that the nearby Standard Oil refinery had caught fire. It soon became evident that a passenger jet had crashed. Firefighters fought the inferno and then began searching for survivors, but it quickly became clear there were none. All 271 people on board perished. In addition, 2 mechanics inside the hangar at the time were also killed. Burning wreckage scattered into a nearby trailer park, causing destruction but no further fatalities. At that time, and still today, the loss of Flight 191 remains the most fatal single aircraft accident in American aviation. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, launched an investigation. It was immediately clear the crash was triggered by the separation of the engine, but many questions still remained unanswered. Why did the engine break away? Could the pilots have possibly regained control? And most importantly, who bore responsibility? The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, responded by grounding every DC-10 and banning foreign carriers from flying them into the U.S. Meanwhile, photographs of the disaster appeared on front pages nationwide, severely damaging the public's perception of the DC-10's safety. For months afterward, passengers around the world deliberately avoided flights operated with the DC-10. Initially, investigators believed a fractured bolt found on the runway was to blame for the separation. This theory was publicly announced, only to be disproven later when no connection could be found between the bolt and the accident. Investigators next turned to the plane's black boxes. Both offered disappointing results. The cockpit voice recorder went silent immediately after Captain Lux's exclamation. It had been powered by the left engine and failed when the engine detached. Meanwhile, the flight data recorder produced erratic information because the plane's violent maneuvers distorted the readings. A closer look at the separated engine revealed dents inconsistent with runway impact. Following that lead, investigators discovered that the aircraft had undergone heavy maintenance 2 months earlier at American Airlines' Tulsa, Oklahoma facility. This was part of a C-check, an extensive inspection conducted roughly every 12 to 18 months. What they uncovered there was troubling. Maintenance crews were not adhering to McDonnell Douglas's official procedures for engine servicing. Instead of removing the engine from its mounting structure, known as the pylon, workers detached the entire assembly together. After servicing, they reinstalled it using a forklift. This method risked misalignment, bending the pylon's attachment pins. Worse still, it was easy to slam the assembly back into place, creating microscopic cracks in the metal. American Airlines was not the only carrier using this shortcut. Continental Airlines had also adopted the practice. With the DC-10 grounded, urgent inspections were ordered across multiple fleets. Numerous aircraft were found with dangerous fractures, some close to catastrophic failure. Attention then turned to the actions of Flight 191's pilots. Some speculated the crew might have managed a safe return. Commercial airliners are designed to continue flying with one failed engine, and Flight 191 still had 2 working engines when it crashed. Absolute certainty about the cockpit decisions remains elusive, but the Quick Reference Handbook, QRH, provided clues. For an engine failure, the QRH instructed crews to reduce speed in preparation for an emergency landing. In this case, the pilots did not know they had physically lost an engine. They only believed it had failed. To keep the aircraft stable, they would have needed to maintain speed. Photographs taken moments before impact show a trail of mist, later identified as hydraulic fluid. The leak caused the flaps and slats on the left wing to retract, while those on the right remained extended, producing aerodynamic imbalance. With reduced airspeed, the plane stalled and rolled onto its side. A final question emerged. Why had the crew not been warned of the stall? The answer was found in the aircraft's design. The stall warning system, known as the stick shaker, was powered by the left engine. When it detached, the warning device in the captain's control column lost power. Regulations at the time did not require both pilots to have independent stick shakers, nor that the system draw power from multiple engines. Although McDonnell Douglas offered dual stick shakers as an option, American Airlines had chosen not to install them. The NTSB concluded that American Airlines' improper maintenance procedure was the root cause of the crash, and that the flight crew acted reasonably given the information available to them. American was fined $500,000, equivalent to $1.6 million today. The FAA, acting on NTSB recommendations, enforced stricter maintenance standards across the industry. Additionally, rules were changed to ensure that electrical systems received power from all engines, not just one. Both pilots were now required to have functioning stick shakers, and new safety valves were installed in hydraulic systems to preserve pressure in case of rupture. The FAA faced heavy criticism for failing to monitor airline maintenance more rigorously. The lead inspector who signed off the plane before the crash, Earl Russell Marshall, later took his own life. American Airlines continued operating DC-10s until 2000, when they were gradually replaced with newer aircraft. The crash site itself remained empty until 2011, when a permanent memorial was erected. Today, O'Hare International Airport remains one of the busiest in the world, yet it is forever remembered as the place where 271 souls lost their lives aboard Flight 191. The crash of Flight 191 was more than a tragic accident. It was a turning point. From stricter maintenance standards to redesigned safety systems, every life lost that day reshaped the way we fly today. Yet, as with so many disasters, it leaves us with haunting questions. Could it have been prevented if warnings had been taken more seriously? How many hidden shortcuts or overlooked risks still remain in the skies we trust every single day? And perhaps most unsettling of all, does it really take a tragedy of this scale before change is made? The story of Flight 191 is one of loss, but also one of lessons that continue to ripple through aviation even decades later. What do you think? Did the industry truly learn enough from this disaster? Or is history bound to repeat itself?